Yeah, Matt, you and I go way back, of course. And we're talking almost 20 years ago. It's funny, actually, I was thinking about it. You don't realize this, but we had a moment back in 2005, maybe, where it was something that I will always remember, and it kind of propelled me into doing what I'm doing today. So you were playing for Coach Shaw, and I had just finished my career at CNU with Coach Shaw, and so I was coaching a little bit, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And he would drag me along to some events, and I would coach you guys while he went recruiting. So if you remember, I wasn't your guys' coach, but I filled in like a half a dozen times or something. And I think we were down in Raleigh, and he said, "Go coach the boys. I got to go watch a few games." So I went and coached you guys. And then the second game of that day, I remember thinking to myself, man, all right, I think we can do better on a corner kick. Let's install this play that my coach in high school, actually, Ken Krieger, just passed away. He had this play. And I'm like, all right, let's install this play. You had some big guys on your roster at the time, some good players. And so I actually asked you, another big guy, to kind of evacuate out of the middle, go to the outside, and kind of late entry to the back post. And we kind of ran through it a little bit in pregame. It was weird. We're like learning a new play in pregame right in front of the other team. So it's probably bad on my part. But sure enough, the first corner happens. The ball's served in well. I think your boy Drivus was serving it, puts it right in the mix. It trickles out to the back post, and you run in and you just smash it into the goal. And everybody's cheering and running. And I'm like, oh crap, we just did that like an hour ago. This is awesome. And you looked at me and you pointed at me and you kind of smiled and pointed at me. And I'm like, that was like my first time ever saying, let's try something. And it worked right there on the spot. And so, I mean, buddy, that was almost 20 years ago. And I'm still like, I think about that today. And that was one of the reasons that I'm like, man, maybe I'll be okay at this. Maybe I should do this. And so thank you for that. Thanks for, I don't know, do you remember that play? I mean, it was a long time ago. You've been hitting the head a few times since then. So
Yeah.
you can see how many times I've done a play that worked that I can still remember one from 20 years ago.
I love it. I'm trying to think back on it. It may come back to me eventually, but I'm trying to think through it. I mean, gosh, growing up playing all those games and travel and high school, and it all kind of comes together.
Well, buddy, you were like 13 years old, so you've had a lot happen to you since then. And so it's just so you know, it meant a lot to me still today.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. But yeah, we appreciate you being on. Actually, I have a cousin that just decided he's going to attend Auburn. He's a lacrosse player from California. And you guys don't have lacrosse, do you? Just a club sport, maybe?
Yeah, the club. Yeah, club. Yeah.
He's an awesome kid. He's a good player. I'm sure he was being recruited a little bit, but he just wanted to go to a big school. I mean, he was looking at all the big SECs, and he wanted that experience, and well, he's going to get it. So, if he's looking for a job, I might send him your way. Maybe you get him on staff somewhere. But he's
Absolutely.
a good kid. Good
Is
kid.
he trying to continue into play club or?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him since he said he was going to go. He just did it like, I don't know, it's like a week or two ago. So I'll give him a call, and I'm going to send his dad this interview once we post it, so he'll be excited. Yeah. Like, oh, awesome. Man, one of the athletic directors there? That's pretty cool. Yeah. No big deal. I remember him. No big deal.
Give him my info. We'd love to connect when he gets here.
I'll do that. Actually, another thing, I have family in Huntsville. And I'll be down there in July, and we're driving down to the Panhandle together. Yeah. So I don't know. How far off of the road is that for you?
I'm still getting familiar with the area. I want to say Huntsville is like 2.5, 3 hours.
Right.
We're south of Huntsville, but obviously going down towards the Panhandle. I mean, we're only 3 hours from Panhandle, so it's not too bad at all.
So off of the main highway, though, how far are you? So I'm going south from Huntsville. Are you quick off the highway?
Yeah, we're right off the highway. We're right off 85 by 5-10 miles.
I might give you a call then, man. Maybe we'll get some barbecue or something. You can show me around. That'd be great.
Yeah. July's down for us, so I should be wide open.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah. Well, you're about to be not open at all because complete chaos. So, yeah, man. Hey, the draft was last night. Any Auburn guys get taken? I didn't notice it.
No guys yesterday. We're probably projecting 3 or 4 guys, maybe 5 in total in the draft. Probably guys starting to go third round would probably be my guess. Obviously, we hope for better, but a lot of our guys projected 3rd, 4th, 5th around type guy. So.
Well, I'm a big Bears fan. We had an awesome day yesterday, and if you think there's a big time tackle or something that we should be snagging in the third round, I'll give you a call if we get an Auburn boy. Give me some background information, okay?
Yep, yep. I'm a
Well, look,
Packers fan, so I can't give you too much.
you're a Packers fan.
Yep.
All right, I'm signing off. You guys enjoy. Yeah, we haven't done well against you guys for decades, so I'm hoping that tonight might have changed our fortunes. But well, look, buddy, I'm glad you're on. You had a recruiting experience. You were a soccer player, obviously, but you were also a football player towards the end. And actually, I lost an awesome kid. I really wanted him to come play soccer for us. We offered him a spot, but he was same situation. He was a really good field goal kicker, and he basically sat back and he told me, he goes, whichever offer is the best is what I'm going to do sport wise. And he ended up getting some scholarship money to go to a Division I school. Awesome kid. I'm happy for him. I'm bummed we're not getting him, but that kind of reminded me of your journey. And so, if you don't mind, kick us off a little bit into what your recruiting process looked like. And I believe you stepped away from soccer your senior year to focus solely on kicking. But I want to give you the floor. Kind of tell us what your process looked like and how you ultimately ended up at Liberty.
Yeah. So obviously for me, growing up, I'd always played soccer. That was my passion. Quite honestly, I probably still love soccer more today than I do football. But I obviously grew up playing soccer and basketball. Uh, and then my father had played football and basketball in high school. So obviously he was a big football guy, but really enjoyed. He took me all around the country, as you know, travel soccer, the whole deal. But about probably freshman, sophomore year of high school, I kind of ramped up and I kind of took it was luckily in Virginia where we had football in the fall, soccer in the spring. So I was able to play both in high school. And I just tried kicking just to see how it would go. And it actually ended up just kind of taking off for me. So things started to heat up between both soccer and football when it came to recruiting. Obviously, in our area, in Newport News area, growing up, that's obviously a heavy recruiting area for football. It's a recruiting hotbed still today. So obviously, we were decent at Warwick. Went to Warwick High School. We were decent. Playing the guys of Phoebus and Hampton every year was always tough. But it kind of, I really enjoyed it. It was something that I just was naturally gifted at, that I never really knew was a calling, if you will. But obviously, things started to heat up. I continued to play travel soccer all through high school until my senior year. I did play high school soccer all the way through, just because I wanted to finish it out. I didn't want to leave my high school team out high and dry my senior year. And obviously, my best friend Sean Drybus, who ended up going to play at App State. I wanted to play with him my final year, but I was obviously concerned of an injury and potentially losing a scholarship to go to Liberty. But coming out of high school, obviously had a handful of offers that were committable: Duke, UNC, East Carolina, Liberty, JMU. But a lot of those bigger schools in the ACC had guys that are already kind of in the stable, if you will. And if I were to go to a place like that, not saying I couldn't have beat them out, but I'd probably have to sit at least 2 or 3 years before I had my time. Obviously versus Liberty going in right away and playing right away. And obviously I went in, played right away as a true freshman and had a great career there. But the recruiting process then is probably a lot different than what it is now, kind of looking at it from afar. But I really just enjoyed it. Obviously, a lot of those teams are on the East Coast, and my dad really loves just driving and traveling around. I mean, we did it our whole life playing travel soccer, bouncing around all over the place. And when we started going to these camps in the summer for these football camps and kicking and traveling all around, it was kind of a natural fit because we were used to traveling around. And obviously, I was very fortunate enough to have a family that was supportive of it. And I think eventually it did pay off for them. But the recruiting process was fun. I enjoyed it then versus maybe what it is now. It's a lot different now. I would probably say that in today's world, it's more transactional versus relational. Obviously, I was a relational type person at the time, and I really enjoyed kind of just getting to know different programs, different coaches, different staffs. But Liberty, at the end of the day, was just the best fit for me. And obviously, the folks there were amazing, and that gave me a chance to play right away. And they obviously paid for my school in full, so I couldn't complain there. And Kind of going back, I wish I could have played soccer in college, but it was hard getting a full scholarship in soccer versus football. So I kind of took the best deal.
Well, it's interesting. You play a position now. Football is one of the ultimate team sports. I get it. You need all the moving pieces, but your position specifically is probably the most individual. I mean, look at how a field goal kicker rolls up there with the second on the clock, and they're not talking about the right guard didn't block properly. No, the whole it's on you. Like all of it's on you, and it's so it's pretty individual. And specifically speaking, if you wanted to go pro from being a field goal kicker, you need to go to a place where you're going to get on the field and play right away. And like if you would have gone to back then, Alabama, I guess was really strong, and some of these big dogs, Florida State or whatever. You're right. You might have sat, and you guys might have won more or something like that. But as an individual kind of position in a big team sport, it kind of reminds me more of like a tennis player or a golf kid where really you want to just go to the best school that you think is going to be a perfect fit for you because they're looking at the individual more than the team accolades. And the team's not really propelling you as much as other positions in football. But yeah, it's an interesting role there. Did you have any prospects after you graduated to possibly play professionally?
Yeah, I did. So I ended up finishing Liberty as I was a two-time All-American, and obviously I'm currently still the all-time leading scorer there at Liberty in school history. So those are obviously some accolades that allow me to play right away to kind of build that case, if you will. So I did have an opportunity to go the NFL. My senior year was a rough go. I ended up tearing my quad early in the season, so I only got to play about 4 or 5 games my senior year. Finished the season still injured, but I finished it. And I kind of took some time off, and I got an agent out of out of college, and I had an opportunity to go to the NFL. So I was still training and kind of attempting that. I actually had a workout with the Chargers and the 49ers in the late spring of after I graduated. I'm going out there and I'm preparing, working out, and I ended up tearing my quad again as I was practicing and preparing for that. So that point, it was to me where it was, if I've made it this far and I've tried to rehab it, I've tried to do everything I've done to try to get this thing right and get healed, and it's still not able to kind of get there. It just kind of squashed it. So it's kind of an unfortunate ending, obviously very tough for my family because they were really excited to see if that was going to be an opportunity for me. But I just took that as a time where, maybe there was a calling somewhere else. And it was a tough decision, obviously, but my body just was telling me it's not ready. So unfortunately, that was kind of a bad ending to that. But obviously, was very fortunate to have the opportunity to go to school for free and play football. So I couldn't complain too much.
Well, and there's only 32 jobs in the NFL. I mean, I don't know too many teams that have multiple kickers on the team. You might have a punter that can act as the kicker in a pinch, but I mean, I still remember Doug Flutie doing that drop kick
Oh
with
yeah,
the Patriots a few years ago. That was pretty cool. I didn't even
yeah.
know that was legal. It looks so illegal, but that's worth a point. It's kind of neat. But
That's about all I can do these days is maybe a drop kick. That's about it. So
there you go. So you're not
yeah,
doing any demo with your current special teams group, huh?
no chance, no
Yeah,
chance.
it's
I
funny.
can't keep up with them guys.
I roll out to field. I roll out to the practice field, and I'm in tennis shoes. I don't wear cleats, which I think I would fail my licenses now. Like, you got to wear cleats. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be a hero here. Like, I don't
No,
need to. I don't need to demo. I've got college athletes that can go do the demo for me. Like, why do I need
yeah,
to 41? Yeah, the
exactly.
kid go
No,
out.
that's
Well, how did
smart.
you had to been kind of a whirlwind for you guys? So, talk about your coaching journey and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, so as I was kind of finishing up college, I was a sport management major, so we had to do a 800-hour internship. And obviously, as a student athlete, it was very difficult to take time away to go find an 800-hour internship. So what I ended up doing was I ended up doing a internship in compliance. So all the NCAA rules and regulations and
Oof.
bylaws and all that stuff. I was just kind of being a nerd, I guess. And so I kind of got into that as an intern. I was a student athlete, so I was kind of going in, a few hours a day whenever I didn't have class and before workouts or whatever that may be. Um, I did. I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't say I would love it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. Like I'm working in college athletics. This is really cool. and just kind of really learned over the next 5 years. I ended up getting offered a full-time job there at Liberty in compliance. Once I had graduated and decided I was no longer going to attempt the NFL. So I did that for 5 years and just really kind of got to get to know kind of the ins and outs of college athletics and going to different seminars and programs, kind of learn. And obviously, from a compliance standpoint, it's an ever evolving deal where you're constantly learning new legislation and how to interpret things. And at the time, the head coach at Liberty was Turner Gill. And I was kind of as a representative from compliance and kind of that liaison between compliance and football program, obviously because of my experience in football. So I ended up building a really good relationship with the football staff under Turner Gill when they were there when I was in compliance and just kind of really trying to be a good advocate for them. A lot of people think compliance is always no, no, no. But in reality, I always saw it as let's try to find a creative solution to get you a yes. Obviously, if we can't do it, we can't do it. But we can be creative and try to find a creative solution. Let's try to go that angle. And they really enjoyed that about me. So I actually built a good relationship with the football staff during my time in compliance. And then in 20, Turner Gill had given me a call and said, hey, I would love for you to be our director of recruiting. Is this something you'd be interested in? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Obviously, I know Liberty. I know the people. I've been in college football. I know how that works. Yeah, I'm open to it. So I went in and jumped into it. And from there, just kind of was like a wildfire where it kind of grew into other opportunities. High school relations, director of player development, director of operations throughout the years. And then when Liberty had hired Hugh Freeze, he had came in. I was still doing recruiting. And I went to coach and I said, Coach, I truly just don't have a passion for recruiting anymore. The direction that I think that is going is just going to be overwhelming. We only have a one-man shop. Like,
Yeah.
and I was just honest with him. And I said, Coach, I know I'm the director of recruiting and you just got here. I'm going to finish this thing out for you. But, is there a chance that I can do something else under your staff? I got 5 years of compliance experience. I can help you out. I can advocate for you. I can put us in a position to succeed now that you're first arriving at Liberty. It's a new environment for you. I've been here. I played here. I know the people here. Let me make your transition as easy as possible. And he said, well, would you like to do some player development stuff? I said, yeah, Coach, I would love to do that. I know the guys. I can relate to the guys. I can help them with this off the field stuff that they don't need to be worrying about outside of X's and O's. So he's like, well, you've earned it. You've done a great job for me since I've been here. And then I stuck on with Coach Freeze, continued to do that, jumped into operations, team travel, all that fun stuff. And then my final year and a half at Liberty with Coach Freeze, he had promoted me to chief of staff, which is kind of overseeing all the auxiliary staffs within the building, all of the support staff. And then when he got the job at Auburn, he gave me a call. I was like, I need you down here now. We got to get this thing fixed. So he brought me in and he said, hey, I'm sending the jet in 30 minutes. I need you to be at the airport in Lynchburg. And I said, well, Coach, let me go home and pack my bags and go. So I drove home. I walked in the back door and I said, hey, told my wife, Chelsea, I said, hey, we're going to Auburn. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we're going to Auburn. I got to pack my bag. I got to get on the airplane in 20 minutes. So it kind of escalated pretty quick.
Yeah.
Sure enough, I got here last December, December of 22, and obviously I was here, but we were getting prepared for signing day. So in my mind, I don't know why I was thinking this. I thought I was going to be here for a couple of days and get things rolling and this and that. And sure enough, we were here all the way through signing day in late December. So I ended up here in a hotel in Auburn for a month without my wife and child.
Oh,
And we're trying to figure out, we got to put the house up for sale. We got to move. We got to do this. We got to do that. So it kind of escalated pretty quickly. But so now I'm here at Auburn, currently serving as the chief of staff here for Coach Freeze, and obviously oversight of all the support staffs in the area, whether it's recruiting, personnel, player development, operations, sports medicine, nutrition, video, all of those areas. So I gotta wear a lot of hats, but obviously try to be an extra eyes and ears for Coach Freeze program and do what's best for what he envisions for the program.
Well, Auburn's one of those places. There's a lot of schools he could have left and got a job at where you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'll stay here at Liberty. I like Lynchburg. It's a nice town. I can raise my kids here. But Auburn, that's a different place. That's one of those schools. It's a power school. You got the Bo Jackson behind you there. There's some names that go there, and That's cool. I mean, was that your first time there when you went down?
Yeah. Well, I say yes as far as seeing the area, but when I was at Liberty, we actually had played down here at Auburn. I want to say it was 20-ish. We came down here and we got our teeth kicked in, obviously, from by Auburn. But it was a cool experience, and you always kind of go into those stadiums and those arenas, and you're like, "Wow, this is really cool."
Right.
How do you even get here? And then, sure enough, three years later, I'm here in Auburn gear, which
Yeah.
is crazy because I've been in Liberty gear for 15 years of my life between being a student athlete and an athletic administrator. So, but we've really enjoyed it down here. It's been pretty cool. So they do it right down here. So it's our
Mm.
little one, before every game, they do this Tiger Walk where they line the road leading up to the stadium with 20,000 people just standing on the sidewalk. It's like this big tailgating event, but they create a lane where the players get off the bus and they walk straight down and they're slapping everyone's hands and they go into the stadium. Well, I was able to bring my 4-year-old on it this year. So of course he's going down. He's slapping everyone's hand. He's living his best life. He's got a big smile on his face.
Yeah, of
He's thinking he's on the team basically.
course.
And it was funny because he went to school that following week, and the kids were like, "Oh, I saw you on Tiger Walk." And he's kind of like, "Yeah, yeah, I was there," kind of deal. So it's a cool experience, and I'm hopeful these will be some memories for him to recall and be
Yeah.
able to look back on and see how special it was.
Well, you got to help me out with one thing here. My cousin's going, and his dad made the post on social media, and he didn't know, like, and I don't know the answer here either. He was like, "Go Tigers, but War Eagle, but they're not Eagles. They're like." Give me the explanation there. Explain what War Eagle means, and help us out a little bit.
Yeah, so War Eagle goes back to an old story where there was a football game. This gentleman had, I guess, they could bring animals into the stadium back then. I mean, long, long, long time ago. And this eagle had been injured and wasn't able to fly. And Auburn was playing a game. They weren't playing really well. They were obviously losing. And then all of a sudden, this eagle, something happened. Eagle basically becomes healed, goes out and starts flying in the stadium above the game, and Auburn goes on to win the football game. But somehow it kind of leaked to where everyone was kind of created this game of War Eagle, and they just basically chanted War Eagle, and then next thing you know, they go on, they win the football game, the Eagles flying around. So that's where the War Eagle kind of comes into play. Obviously, the Auburn Tigers are the Auburn Tigers. The mascot is Albie, great little mascot. But yeah, it's just kind of a tradition, the War Eagle tradition that stuck from many, many, many years ago with this story of this eagle that was injured and then ended up flying, and everyone kind of got behind it. So it was kind of a cool little story. So now every game, they have an eagle flight before every kickoff. So they have an eagle that they release from the top deck of the stadium, and he flies down and lands on the field. And the whole time, everyone's chanting War Eagle. So
Yeah,
really cool environment. You'll probably see some videos online, and but it's a really cool environment. It's a really fun time.
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, especially when you get another big dog in town to come play you guys, the LSU's, the Alabamas, all those big names, Georgia. That's got to be just a party. So,
Oh yeah,
well, I'm sure it's not a party for you that day. You have to work and it's
yeah,
business and you need to win. But if you're just
no
a
doubt.
student there and you get to have fun, maybe have a couple beverages before kickoff, that's
Yeah,
probably a fun environment, at least for those people. But well, look, you talked about it earlier. I want to get into the meat of it now. The relational versus transactional, the NIL, the transfer portal. I mean, I'm dealing with it on a Division III soccer side, which is 0.01% of what you're dealing with on a daily basis. So, you said it perfectly. Relational versus transactional, it really has changed a bunch. I'm seeing it very small compared to what you guys are dealing with daily. What's that like for you at the Power 5, biggest sport in the world? What's going on? Well, biggest
yeah,
sport in America. Makes a lot of money. Soccer. Football,
yeah.
football. But dive into that for us. Help us out a little bit. What's that look like for you on a daily basis?
Yeah, if I kind of backtrack a little bit from the relational side of things, when recruiting was more relational, I just remember the days of even when I was being recruited, and even when I started in college football, it was strictly relational, where you're going in, and we're still doing this. It's just an added layer, but you're going in, you're learning about the kid, you're learning about the, does he have a two-parent home? Who's the one person in this kid's life that is going to help them make this decision? Is that grandma? Is that uncle? Is that auntie or whoever that may be? And that's difficult to find in a lot of these areas that we're recruiting, because a lot of these folks just do not come from two-parent homes, and obviously it can be very difficult. But you're constantly trying to build a true, genuine relationship with this kid. You're trying to get to know the kid. You're trying to get to know the family. You're trying to get to know the coaches that are at the high school that may be around them every single day, the teachers, things like that. So it's a constant relationship building process. But now it's kind of flipped to this kind of transactional process, this NIL world. Yes, relational is very, very important. Coach Freeze continues to reiterate that first and foremost, the most important thing that he wants is for a student athlete to come into this program, get to know them in the recruiting process, and continue to grow them as a student athlete when they're here. I mean, he continues to make promises to these families or this one person in their life to say, hey, yes, football is important. Yes, money is important. But to me, as a head football coach at Auburn, I want to take your son or your nephew, whoever that may be, I want to take that person and grow them into a man and prepare them for life after football. So what does that look like? Obviously, we have a SOAR program. It's a student athlete opportunity program that we run in-house, player development, where we do different things. We show them how to write checks. We show them how to balance a budget. We show them how to change a tire. We show them how to pay taxes. Those are real things now. We show them kind of these life things. Obviously, kids get, a speeding ticket. They got to go to court. Well, we're going to take them to court and show them this is the process. This is what you do. So he takes great pride in trying to continue to grow these kids into better individuals. And there may be other coaches in the country that are like that, I'm sure, but there's also probably a bunch that aren't that way. But that's one thing, obviously, I appreciate of Coach is he hasn't lost sight of that relational aspect of it. And I do appreciate that from him. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I continue to work for Coach. And probably wouldn't be many I would work for outside of Coach. But now, obviously, we've kind of entered into this game of transactional, the world of NIL that is now completely just blown out of proportion. And it's exhausting. There may have been a coach down the road here that retired recently because of how much it just got wild. But obviously, for us, we have to continue to speak life into these kids, and we got to continue to tell these parents, look, yes, the money is a part of the game now in this NIL world. We totally get that, and we want to be able to give you the best deal that you're able to do. Whatever you are worth and what value you are bringing in the name, image, and likeness world, we want to obviously you should be able to be compensated. We do not, we totally support that, but there's also got to be a genuine of like, look, you're not a lottery ticket. You're not this lottery ticket of, I need this amount of money and this amount of money. So it's kind of evolved into this big monster that has constantly driven a lot of folks to be hungrier and hungry for more money and more, whatever that may be. And it's been a tough balance between trying to maintain a relational aspect, but obviously still being involved to an extent with the NIL world. Obviously, there's some different laws depending on what state you're in, what involvement you can have with NIL as a staff versus not as a staff. So that's obviously many dynamics to that. But unfortunately, I think the catch-up is out of the bottle in this NIL world, and you just got to run with it and do the best you can with it. So it's definitely changed the game, and it's so different. A lot of our coaches who have been in the game for 30 plus years are so used to the old model, but now this new model has jumped in, and it's just this major whirlwind of, whoa, what's going on? How do we respond to this? How to react to this? And how do we manage this? Now with the transfer portal, where these kids can now transfer as many times as they want without being penalized. Not only are you recruiting your incoming athletes that you're trying to get, you're recruiting kids that are in the transfer portal, but you're also recruiting your current roster. Those guys can jump out in a heartbeat. So you're kind of juggling a little bit of all that. Before when kids had one-time transfer and they'd already transferred to you, you kind of felt, okay, good. Whew, that kid really can't move on. Obviously, we want to keep him, but we know he can't move on. But now it's free game, and that kind of has changed the game as well. So.
Yeah, that's such a bizarre statement, but it's so true. You have to continue to recruit the kids you already have. And The saying used to be recruit them until they're on campus. Like,
Right.
what that meant was you got a kid, he's committed to you, but he's not really yours until he steps on campus, puts on the Auburn gear, and he's now officially playing with you. Now you've done it. That used to be the recruiting pitch. Now it's such a bizarre thing to say, but it's true. Yeah, this kid's really, really good. He can be poached at any time. And who knows exactly what all the dynamics are about these kids and who they're talking to. I mean, they're not entering the portal without some information. They
Right.
have to know, like, hey, I can get 2 million if I leave. And the guy Matt Rule said, a good quarterback in the transfer portal, that's one and a half, $2 million what's going to cost you. It's like that is such an eye-opening, shocking statement, and that dollar amount's only going up. By the way, I mean look at the guys that just got drafted last night. I think 5 of the 6 guys that were drafted, that of the quarterbacks, I should say, that were drafted in the top 10, 12 picks, whatever it was, 5 of them have transferred. 5 of them have transferred. They all left to go to bigger programs. I'm sure they got a check in the mail when they did transfer. And then it led to success. I mean, look at what they're doing. They're now signing NFL quarterback deals as top 12 picks, and 5 of them transferred. And it's telling a story. It's telling you that these guys can do this, especially at this level, and it's going to lead to money day one. I mean, they're talking about the kid Caleb Williams was already worth $5 million, and he was a junior in college. I mean, it's just shocking. He's going to make less than that in the NFL day one. I mean, it's these kids. The money's ridiculous. The NILs are ridiculous. The money they're making off to the side is ridiculous, and I truly believe we don't even know exactly what the conversations are like. Like you kind of mentioned, we really have to be careful with what we do, but I can't imagine every coach is, sitting off the sideline like, no, let the NIL play itself out. I would imagine they're all kind of like, hey, you got a buddy over there at Auburn. Let's give him a call. See what he says. What type of offers is he getting? I mean, do you have any horror stories without getting anybody in trouble that you'd like to share with us? I mean, it's a scary world out
Yeah, it's a scary world. I would probably refrain from any of those stories.
there.
uh,
Yeah,
just,
I believe you.
but obviously, the other thing that you had mentioned, which is accurate. I mean, you have these kids that are getting counsel, if you will, from really anyone. I mean, you have their pee wee football coach coming into the game late, saying, "Hey, I think you should do this and you should do this," and these kids are not necessarily getting positive counsel out of some of these folks that don't really necessarily know the ins and outs of what's going on in college football. So then you end up battling, those kind of dynamics. Well, the kid's saying, "Oh, I want to transfer." Well, why do you want to transfer? Well, Uncle Johnny is telling me that I should do this. Well, Uncle Johnny doesn't know exactly everything that's going on. Come in here, let's sit down, let's get Uncle Johnny in here, let's talk to him, and let's talk through this thing before we start making any rash decisions. And coach does a really good job of that. Obviously, coach is a player's coach. I know you hear that a lot. That's kind of coach talk, but coach is very open door policy for our student athletes. And our guys are always up here wanting to come talk to coach, and coaches opens them with open arms to kind of talk to them and really just kind of get to their level and try to give them positive and real counsel, versus making some irrational decisions outside of the buildings. But it's definitely a monster, and you're constantly recruiting. As I mentioned, the high school kids, the college portal kids, the current roster downstairs in the locker room. Like, it is an evolving piece that, and for the most part, I think we do a pretty good job of keeping the guys that we want to keep. But these guys start going out, and Uncle Johnny's in the streets, and he's talking to this school down the road or that school over here, and makes you, "Oh, I got a better deal for you over here. Why don't you come over here?" And then it just kind of creates this chaos in these kids' minds. And but we got to continue to do a better job of just pouring real life into the kids. And I think Coach Freeze does a really good job of doing that. And obviously doing a thorough explanation of his vision and what that looks like for the program, and really pouring into the kids on a day-to-day basis.
Scott,
Hey, Matt.
Scott, my last thing.
Okay, go
Scott,
ahead.
hold on. Last piece. I know you're about to jump in there. The coaching side of that, and you're the chief of staff part of that is what we're looking for really is a healthy balance. So you're talking about these guys that are 20, 30 years in that they're old school. You got these new guys. Realistically, you need a healthy balance. I don't know if you could live in a world where your entire roster is transfer portal. I think you got to have that kid that's, you know what? This kid grew up in Alabama. he's been saying War Eagle since he was standing as a 4-year-old in the line there. And this kid's grinding. He can't play for me day one. But you got to have a kid like that. That kid's amazing for the culture. He's going to grind. He's going to give you 4 or 5 years, depending on his eligibility situation. And that kid is massive for what you want, and you can win with that kid. But you also, whoa, I can get the Heisman Trophy winner wants to transfer to me. I know that sounds that crazy, but that's coming. Some
Right.
kid is going to win the Heisman and transfer. I mean, the kid Caleb Williams transferred and won the Heisman the next year. So we're one step earlier from that exact same thing happening that we just described. And so for you with Coach Freeze is like, man, I have to win here. This is Auburn. So to find the healthy balance, also win. They give you the shortest leashes possible in your world. And yeah, I just, you have to find the healthy balance, but at the same time, yeah, Coach Freeze is like, man, I got to win, buddy. If I can get this kid, I'm going to get this kid. And so it creates a weird dynamic. It definitely does. And when you're a traditional high school kid, that's a grinder, that's maybe a 3-star that got his opportunity at an Auburn that he might not have thought he was going to get, but was like, I got to take this. I'm going to turn into the 5-star that they thought I might have been. And that's you're hearing less and less of those stories and more of the transfer and immediately and finding the immediate success. And it is a shame. As a coach, it's a shame. Like I feel like I'm more of that relational guy. I want that type of piece to the puzzle, but you got to keep your job. You got to win, and that's where it's a weird dynamic. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, Scott. I just wanted to throw like a coach thought angle in there. So
yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of keep pulling at that thread. I mean, I had a guy on who is in the management of a NIL collect company. I don't know if they have Auburn as a client, but I wanted you to dig into what the relationship is like between a program and the actual collective, because I don't think a lot of people understand how that works. And
Yeah.
and you've been there. How long have you been there at Auburn? You said 20.
Yeah, year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, think about how much has changed since you first came to now. I mean, it's crazy how much it's changed.
Yeah, so our collective here at Auburn, it's called On to Victory, OTV. Obviously, they're a separate entity outside of the athletics department, and obviously we have our general manager of recruiting is kind of our guy who oversees the entire personnel department, our roster management side of things, our recruiting. He's got a big role. We just hired him in from LSU about 4 or 5 months ago. Great guy. But obviously, he is a guy that is he's already got this relationship with our On to Victory NIL collective group. But obviously, the NIL collective group is the ones that are cutting the deals and all these things that are setting up these NIL pieces with these student athletes. But obviously, it's really important, obviously, for there to be a relationship and our coaches and staff. And that's something that we try to streamline as much as we can without getting too many cooks in the kitchen. Because the last thing you want is all these coaches and staff members chirping in the ear on the victory and these things, and it gets kind of ugly. So that relationship obviously has got to be important, right? They're the ones that are kind of riding the ship, if you will. They're kind of the engine, if you will, of the operation versus our general manager of player personnel is kind of the captain. He's the one steering. Hey, we got to go this way, or we got to go this way, or this is the direction that we're looking to do. To whereas the engine is the ones. Yes, we're going to keep operating. We got to keep moving. So obviously, the relationship between the two are obviously very keen. It's got to be very important and make sure that we're very punctual and organized. But man, you got money that's involved, and you got to be obviously fiscally responsible when it comes to, hey, this is the pot of money that they're working out of. How are we going to manage this with all of these kids that are leaving, coming in? Things like that. So it's and it's still ever growing. This game is. I mean, it seems like we've been in it for 10 years, but we really haven't. It's just come out so quick and went from 0 to 100 like that. So, and you start to kind of see and hear from how other schools are operating as well. So then you're kind of saying, oh, that's a good idea. These people are doing it this way. Maybe this is something that we should look into. Even in the recruiting process, we bring a kid on campus and they're like, oh, well, this school is doing this, or they told me this. And you're like, okay, there might be some truth to it. There may not be some truth to it, but But obviously, yes, the relationship between our collective and the football program has got to be something that's got to be as tight as possible and as clear as possible, while also managing and staying in between the lines of permissibility with NCAA rules. So we got to make sure that we're doing it the right way. And Coach continues to reiterate that we are going to do it the right way. We're not going to cross any lines when it comes to doing any kind of illegal activity or going against compliance. So with all of the crazy and the chaos going on, he still wants to make sure we're doing it the right way and we're being straightforward as possible. So it is an ever growing process between the two.
Yeah. And like you said, like the ketchup's out of the bottle, right? So there's no going back at this point. But like as kind of a cautionary tale to recruits, to student athletes, I mean, if it becomes too transactional, is it going to scare off some programs where, they're coming to you guys and saying, well, this school offered me X amount. What can you guys pony up for me? I mean, so at what point are you guys like, the way you know how to recruit is still how you're going to recruit, kind of as a foundation, right? From a relational standpoint. And like, so when do you guys kind of get, I know it's case by case, but, if you had a way to caution kids from how to behave during the recruiting process, how much handout should they have and how much should they be like trying to prove themselves to you?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we're starting to see in the college scope of this NIL world is there are some places that may be recruiting kids and saying, hey, this is your deal, or this is the type of deal that you're going to get. And the kids end up going there, and the kids end up not even getting close to what they were, quote unquote, promised.
Oh, wow.
So the way we look at it from our angle is we are going to be 100% transparent and honest from the very beginning. We're not going to put any fluff in the game. Obviously, we had a meeting yesterday about this. Of we need to be upfront and honest and transparent with everyone from the very beginning, and stick by our guns. This is what we're doing. This is what we're committed to, and we're going to be honest about it. Obviously, if you come with some wild number or wild deal that we can't meet, then we're just going to have to unfortunately just say, I just don't think it's going to work here at Auburn. And that's okay, because Coach is very committed to building the culture. And if these type of kids aren't going to be a good fit for the culture, all because they're looking at a dollar figure or whatever the deal is, then maybe it's not the right fit from a culture standpoint. Maybe they're more me guys versus team guys, and that's what we're looking for. So it's got to be a healthy balance. It's tough. Obviously, there's some ball players out there that are probably worth every penny of it, but we also need to be transparent and honest with can we meet you there or not? And if we can't, we're just going to let you know. And best of luck. Maybe we'll see you in a year when the portal opens up again. But that's kind of the game that we're in. So,
well, a lot of those kids, I mean, they may cost that price now. And if they're already talking about it as a high school kid, what are they going to cost in 2 years when they've had some success in the SEC? I mean,
right.
It's that dollar amount's skyrocketing at that point. And so, it makes sense. It makes sense to be super cautious on that front end part. And that kind of talks about the balance that we were discussing a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I wanted to back up to something we were talking about before we hit record. And you were talking about like just the value as a young kid going out and just playing in the neighborhood. And we had the soccer coach on from DePaul, whose brother is the soccer coach at West Point. And they grew up in a neighborhood just like that, where they were out playing and like 2 or 3 of the kids that grew up together ended up playing in the MLS. And like, just talk about the value, even from your personal experience of like seeing kids that you've recruited and had on teams that just grew up playing a bunch of sports and, whatever was being played out in the road is what they played, and just, maybe talk about how you see that panning out with, in your experience with kids that you're around now.
I think it's important, and my wife and I talk about this all the time, and our cul-de-sac where the little kids are running around riding bikes and tackling football in the yard and kicking soccer balls and golf balls are slinging all over the place. I mean, it's like that kind of took us back to when we were younger and we were doing that, and we were engaging with other friends and engaging in sport and getting outside and doing those activities versus sitting indoors playing video games. But obviously, it's really cool to see kind of our kid doing that. And obviously, but it's obviously important. It's life lessons that you learn throughout that stuff. And whether that's, interacting with other folks, or you fall and you skin your knee and you're hurt and you're injured, well, you got to find a way to get up. Let's clean it up and we get back to it. So you kind of learn a lot of those life lessons through that. And it's really cool to kind of see that from afar. And there's still a little bit of hope for that to still be the future. But you know what? It's just you see a lot of correlation to that and the recruiting process too, where these kids where they come from, and you go and you visit their homes or you visit their schools, and you see that. And those are really good sights to see. And I think they do play a very important life lessons, and not only just in the growth of that person, but also if they're someone who wants to play sports in the future, that kind of been ingrained in that process, and they can kind of learn and create new opportunities through that.
I mean, do you see like kids focusing too early on one sport, and then not increasing their athleticism by
Yeah.
kind of spreading the wealth around other sports?
Yeah, I could see that. I think there's probably, and I'm new to this fatherhood stuff, but I've been really good with just allowing. I told my wife from day one, I said, I'm not going to be, we're doing this for. I'm just going to let him just kind of be a free for all, let him kind of find his niche and what he really is most comfortable with. And we're still working through that because he wants any kind of ball he's in, with football, basketball, golf, soccer. I mean, he's doing it all. I'm just kind of letting him do his thing, kind of let him find his niche. But yes, I've seen a lot of pressure. God, there's a kid out on social media. His dad puts a lot of pressure on him from football, and these kid's young. I mean, the kid's like 8, 10 years old. That's the only thing he does, and I think that can be a negative impact, in my honest opinion. Again, I'm new to this stuff, but I think it's good just to allow the kids to kind of see where their niche is, and once they find their niche, then yeah, you go ahead and tackle that and kind of go from there. But I do fear that there may be a little bit of kind of putting these kids in a box, if you will, at a young age in one particular sport. Like, yes, I'd love for my kid to play soccer. And does he love soccer? Yeah, he goes out there and he tears it up every week. But then when he gets home, he's ready to hit golf balls, and he wants to go to golf practice, and then and then he wants to go shoot hoops in the driveway. So I love the multiple aspects of it at a young age versus trying to pigeonhole him. And I think that I'm not in it as deep, kind of really see as much. I don't go on the road as much as our coaches and staff do in the recruiting process. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a tough one to kind of gauge. One method may work more for others. I don't know, but I kind of allow the free bird process.
Well, Scott, you now had a kid go through the recruiting process, and he was really on the early front end of this NIL chaos. So, and he's a soccer player, so there probably wasn't anything there. But go ahead and imagine if your son was 16 and they were talking about life-changing money for him in this recruiting process. I mean, this is where, like, I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. I'm the same way. My son's 6 and he plays everything, and I don't know if he's going to be good enough to play anything. He probably can't even fit in the helmets at Auburn, but we'll see. But I'll tell you what, if he's 16 years old and you guys are calling him about life-changing money, my mind, goes to like, ooh, do we just say, screw it, you got to go cook at that paycheck? It may not be the perfect fit, perfect experience, but even if you fail, you're walking out of there with life-changing money. I mean, there's no way parents and families, we're not poor or anything, but if I was in that situation where my entire family now is able to change, ooh, I mean, how do you not make your decisions based off of that, which goes against everything that we've kind of talked about on this podcast over the years? And I get it. I'm a father. If my kid's getting that offer or something, how do you not at least explore that? And talking about the trickle down, you're talking about this dad who's already with his 8-year-old. He's probably already thinking, man, in 8 years, we might be able to change this family's trajectory with my 8-year-old. So I'm going to go and be this crazy guy that's sending him to every camp out there, and just so we can transfer twice and make ourselves $10 million and maybe get drafted. And who cares? I can change my entire family's trajectory. I'm doing it. I mean, there's got to be people out there thinking that already with 8-year-olds. How could they not be? And you probably see it.
Absolutely. That's when these Pee Wee coaches start coming back into play.
Yeah, it's we had heard about one here. I don't know names or anything. I don't want to like get anybody in trouble here, but even at there's a girls soccer player that apparently got a huge paycheck to stay in a club. And so you were a club soccer player. Can you imagine getting a paycheck that was had multiple numbers before the first comma, like as a 15-year-old?
Wow.
Like, yeah, that's a salary. I'm taking that as a 15-year-old. That's unbelievable money and just to play
Hmm.
club soccer. So I just can't imagine what the 12-year-old football kid in in Alabama that you hear the stories of these kids that are already committing to go Division 1 at Alabama, and the kid's 13 years old in eighth grade. You're like, how is this even possible? That kid's
Yeah.
now probably getting millions of dollars, and that's just it's just bizarre. And I get where the chaos goes for the family and for the dads that are like, oh man, my kid's close. I'm gonna quit my job and really get him over the edge here. It's like,
Right.
I get it. I get the argument at least.
And that's a massive burden that unfortunately is being placed on the student athletes and the families. I mean, that a lot of times it's money that they've never even seen before, and from a generation like generational wealth that they have never even seen in their life. Now all of a sudden it's entered into their life, and they're expected to make rational decisions and make smart decisions on how to manage your money or what to do with it. And it's a dangerous game. And unfortunately, it could be a good time for the 4 or 5 years that you're in college, but let's say for whatever reason the next level doesn't work out, whether it's soccer, football, basketball, whatever, and you have to go get just a normal 9 to 5 job somewhere, and you're going to be making your annual salary of basically what you're making a month. You're just setting this up for failure, unfortunately. But again, that goes back to what we're trying to do as a staff and coaches as staff is to really speak real life into them and prepare them so that way it doesn't slap them in the face when they graduate. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just the idea of the risk versus reward, that reward is massive. And that's the difference. If the reward was just, oh, you get your degree, like it used to be, the
right,
reward was, well, I'm going to graduate from Auburn with a business degree, whatever it is. That was the reward, which isn't, like you said, generational wealth. This isn't, well, I've just set up my grandkids and they're not even born yet. Like that's a whole different conversation. So unfortunately, you're going to see some steep falls. People are going to have some stories here in 10 years of, I made this decision for my 8-year old and it's, destroyed us or whatever. I mean, there's going to be that story, unfortunately. And I do have a couple questions for you. So
yeah,
let's say you're not one of these 4 or 5 star recruits that's getting this conversation. You're a 3 star, 2 star. I'm sure even some of those kids are getting this discussion, but let's say you're just on the outside of that discussion. What's your advice for that kid? Like he's looking at Auburn. I'm just using it as an example, possibly just spent all this money on a kid or whatever, and you're not in that discussion. But what are you now telling that kid who's not in the $1 million of NIL collectives and all this stuff? He's just a really good football player or soccer player or whatever, and he just wants to go get an awesome education. Maybe he eventually falls into that discussion, but he's just an awesome kid that could also find himself in the great. I just got transfer portaled over and
right.
over and over again. They just kept bringing in this kid, and I just, I didn't even get to play. What do you
Right.
tell that kid? What's your advice for him now?
Well, I think that area is a little bit of a niche, right? Like you said, I think you kind of go back to the relational aspect of the recruiting process, of the importance of the relational aspect and bringing them into a program and growing them as an individual. And it's hard because you're in the same locker room as the 5 star Larry that's making X amount of dollars, and you're two locker spaces over from him, and he's talking about all this money, and he's got his Rolex on, and he's got his brand new car, and all this stuff. So it's difficult, and we recognize that. But usually, those type of kids are the kids that are kind of your old school relational type kids that are, hey, I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to be in the locker room. I'm going to work hard for my team. I'm going to get my master's degree in business here at Auburn or whatever that may be. So I think there's kind of a tier system, if you will, on those types of kids. If that makes sense. That might be a little bit. It might be more open-minded and more receptive to coaches' culture and plan of what it's like to grow into a better son, better father one day, a better, businessman, whatever they may be. Those are usually the kids that kind of tap into the player development world a little bit more often because they're trying to grow. They genuinely want to. They realize that football is not going to be their end game. They realize that the NFL or the MLS or EP, whatever that may be, is not their end game. But the most important thing is getting their degree and trying to find a niche for them to kind of grow into a full-time job and profession after they graduate. So I know that may not technically answer it in full, but I think they're a little bit of a different batch of eggs, if you will, and how you kind of attack and put together a game plan for them.
Yeah, and there's different schools now that could be in play for these 3 stars or 2 stars that normally would have taken their chance at Auburn to develop and grow, and they're kind of thinking to themselves, well, I just don't want to be passed up over and over and over again by some kid in the portal. So I'm going to go to this mid-major or really high academic school that's got what you're talking about in line. I'm going to get the degree I want, but man, the relationship and the experience and the lifetime family that I can get at this place, I can't get at this other school because they're going to recruit over me, every year. Maybe now you're starting to see a trickle down there where these mid majors become pretty darn good programs. They keep these kids for 4 or 5 years and they're able to develop that longevity. And I don't know, that as a coach sounds like a peaceful place to go and recruit and coach at rather than the big dogs, because that's a daunting ask. And I don't know, maybe that's why you're seeing some of these big names step aside and not do this anymore.
Yeah, there was a kid. I didn't follow him much this year. He got drafted last night in the first round out of Toledo. He's a corner DB guy.
Awesome story that they were telling about him.
Yes, and obviously the story that you hear of that, and I'm sure that kid had many opportunities to go play in the SEC or whatever they may have been, but I think he stuck to his guns and he realized that, if he's good, he's good. He's going to get his chance no matter where he's at. And obviously, I'm sure there was probably a level of comfort that he had there at Toledo, and he was comfortable. And you see that in the recruiting process too. Now, is these kids are saying, "Hey, you need to go transfer to this school. You need to get pushed in the portal, and you need to go to this school." And some of these kids are like, "I'm good. Like I like where I'm at. I got a great system. I don't want to move. My family's an hour down the road. Like I'm content." So you do see some of those stories, and you kind of like to see that versus kind of what the landscape has turned in today of just jumping at the next paycheck. So I thought that was a pretty cool story last night, kind of seeing that. And
well, you used to hear that story all the time. That used to be a story up and down the first round, and now when you hear that last night, and they're talking about it on the NFL Network or ESPN or whatever, and you're like, that's amazing. Like it's now become amazing he stayed at his school. He didn't make the jump.
Right.
I think they talked about him keeping his jersey number instead of going down. And I think maybe his grandpa or somebody was like, no, that's your number. You're making that number special. And it was cool. It was really refreshing to hear that as I'm only 41, but I feel like I'm more in the old school world. I'm trying not to get too into this NIL stuff. So that was really a refreshing story. I really like him as a player, and that was cool. It was really cool to hear that.
Yeah, those are the guys you pull for.
Oh yeah.
Let's get out of here. Just kind of give us your thoughts on the Alabama-Auburn rivalry. You said that back in the day they let animals into the stadium, but I mean, I'm sure Alabama fans get in there, so they still let animals in.
Yeah, no doubt. Right? Yeah. When I got here a year and a half ago, you always had heard about kind of the Iron Bowl and the rivalry between Alabama and Auburn, and you hear all the hype and everything behind it. And obviously, this past season was my first go at it. Unfortunately, at the very, very end of the game, the ball did not bounce our way. It was pretty heartbreaking. But leading up to the game, really the week or 2 weeks before, I mean, you just kind of feel like, cloud of smoke. It's just a whole different vibe. I mean, you got people out in the streets 2 weeks in advance, getting their tailgate tent set up, their TVs, they got the RVs parked out. I mean, you're like, dude, we still got to play another game before we get to Alabama, So seeing that is really cool. And for the next couple of weeks leading up to it, it's just this. I mean, all the restaurants, everything in town is just completely flipped into this rivalry, if you will. And obviously, last year was a really good experience. We played at Jordan-Hare Stadium here on campus. This year, we go to Alabama. But it was really a cool experience. It was exciting to kind of be a part of. Was hopeful that it was going to bounce our way. Unfortunately, it didn't, but we got another chance that's coming up here. So hopefully we'll be able to take care of business in Tuscaloosa. But it's a really unique experience. It's kind of hard to explain unless you actually experience it. Because I was kind of the same way. I heard it. I was like, okay, it's just a rivalry game. I've been part of rivalries, all that stuff. But it's just a whole another monster down here in the Alabama-Auburn rivalry game. And they just love their football down here in the South. So they take it to another level. But it was really a cool experience, and I look forward to it again this year.
Yeah, man. All right. Cheese, got anything else?
No, just give the family my best. Good seeing you, buddy. It's been too
man.
long, and if you find your way back up into the Newport News area, give me a call. I'd love to see you, and I'll definitely give you a shout when I'm driving past you down 85 this summer, going down to the beach.
Yeah, give me a holler. It was great catching up with you, Cheese. And Scott, nice to meet you, and I appreciate y'all's time. And give me a holler if y'all need anything.
All right, man. Sounds
All
good.
right.
War Eagle. War Eagle.
Guys. War Eagle.
There you go.